Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. If you're watching me on video right now, I think you're witnessing me finding my first gray hair. I caught it in the camera. I'm almost certain that that is the one. Oh, this is what I get for being a brat to my friends a few weeks ago, being like, I don't have gray hair yet. I'm actually excited about getting gray hair, but it has officially happened to me and we've officially caught it on camera. Oh, what a trip. All right, team, welcome back to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. What an intro. This is actually my second time recording this podcast today because I recorded it once and the audio team still kicking my butt. So we're back. We are ready to just nail it this time. But perks of recording a podcast twice is now I'm not going to say all the weird things that I was going to say before. I get a chance to practice and to filter a little bit more. But today, team, I'm coming to you with an episode about shiny object syndrome, which kind of funnily enough abbreviates to SOS, which I think is hysterical for no other reason, just that it's funny. But this has been coming up a lot in the past week with application calls for a certification, especially if you've been in our world for a while. If you are a nurse coach, if you've listened to 100 hours of me and Laura talking here on the podcast, and you message me and you're like, Shelby, I want to take your certification. Of course, I would love to have you. I love working with nurse coaches. And also, do you need it, or is it the shiny object in your life? And I want to, one, maybe help you discern through your own shiny object syndrome. And two, this could be cool to do with clients, right? Especially if you're working with big dreamers or people with big aspirations or high achievers. Sometimes these folks can be easily distracted and it kind of takes away from our main point. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this more in detail. I know Laura and I have talked about this a lot on the podcast before, but just make it its own thing, make it its own episode today. So as we do here, let's start with the definition of what shiny object syndrome is. And that is a tendency to be easily distracted by new and exciting ideas, projects, opportunities, and often it leads to a lack of focus and unfinished tasks. It often involves chasing after the latest trends or innovations without considering their long-term value or alignment with your goals. So, in the realm of nurse coaching, this shows up in a few different ways, right? Constantly switching your plan for your business, your ideal client, your niche, your modality, how you coach people, right? A lot of people will learn a skill and then drop it before they ever really get good at it because they think if they learn this new skill over here, it'll help them feel better and more confident and blah, 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 blah. This just leads to a huge lack in consistency, right? And I think that it is a balance of there's a time and a place to deepen your skills and deepen your knowledge. When that right time is probably more of a nuanced answer. And I don't love giving completely generic advice here on the call, or here on the podcast, but I want to offer that if you are a new nurse coach that has just graduated a certification and you're wondering, do I need an herbalist certification? Do I need to be be a somatic practitioner? Do I need to be a breathwork facilitator? Most of the time, right out of certification, you don't. You don't need an extra certification. You need to practice the one that you have. And underneath all of these additional skills, there's still the foundational skill of coaching, right? And putting in the hours, putting in the repetitions, that is what is important. And just be willing to coach another 60 to 100 hours to practice the skill, to practice with real people in real time and not just theorize about it, to actually allow yourself to get good at it, right? Imagine if you stopped trying at IVs after 2 or 3 attempts. Bummer, right? You're never going to get good at IVs or Foleys or anything else, but allowing yourself time to practice the skills that you were trained in so that you can build upon them rather than getting pulled in 100 different directions, you know? Another way this shows up is that we often get overwhelmed with all of the things that we're learning at the same time. And then it becomes a question of how do I integrate these things? How do I blend this all together? If you put the whole Thanksgiving dinner on your plate over and over and over again, we run out of room really quickly. And then there is a lack of follow through, a lack of integration on the skill part because we don't know where to start. We have a bunch of different frameworks and it's really challenging to piece them all together when you're new versus when you've been coaching for a year. You have a process and a flow, and then you can look at new skills, look at new modalities as an in addition to of like, yeah, these types of clients could really use this technique, or this client could really use, breath work. This client could really use functional medicine. Like you can start to bring in these different modalities that complement what the work you're already doing with folks in a really beautiful way. We get to titrate up on your capacity for learning new things and actually get to use them in real life, which is great. And to risk sounding like a broken record for the 400th time, consistency is a big deal here in entrepreneurship. You being consistent, showing up consistently getting practice, and consistency in the beginning is more helpful than shiny new certifications and shiny new tools and shiny new all the things, right? Of course, this can get in the way of your business growth, right? We see this all the time. But people jump in and then they're like, oh, but this over here, and oh, this secret marketing strategy, and oh, this Instagram technique, and blah, 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 blah. We just like get sucked into the vortex. Again, consistency, highest priority, and then everything else. And then everything else. Be consistent in your coaching first before we follow the wild goose chase. Because again, there is a time and a place for it all. As an example, I think in the beginning of my practice, I coached with the skills that I had for like 2 years. Coached a lot with the skills that I had. And then I took another coaching certification and I learned new things. And then I practiced that for about like 6 months. Then I joined like a somatic practitioners group coaching, and I did that for a while. And then most recently I did deep coaching intensive with Leon. Me and Laura both did. And those were all layered over time, over like 5 years versus doing all of those things at once, because I would not have been able to do all of the things at the same time if I would have put them all on my plate at the same time. I would have been playing at 10% in every direction rather than doing them all really well with a lot of integrity and then completing it and moving on to the next thing. So, if this is you, you're like, yes, Shelby, I want all the certifications. I love to learn. I'm stuck in this loop. I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it. Will another certification fix this problem? No, this is where you need to hire a coach and hire support and like follow through on your goals and action steps. That is better money spent than on another certification. The certification loop is really appeasing to the ego. We get to put letters after our name. It's the best. It feels good. And again, I don't want to have a lot of black and white thinking here of like saying that you'll never need another certification ever again or another training ever again, but just like being able to discern when is the right time. Do I have the capacity to follow through on this? Do I have the time to commit to it? Do I have the internal bandwidth? How's my self care? Do I have enough time for me? Or is this just another thing taking up my plate? And I was actually on a call with a nurse this afternoon, and this was actually after I recorded this the first time. So maybe this is why I had to record it twice, was to tell you guys this story. And she was talking to me about, feeling some imposter syndrome. She has a lack of follow through on her own like personal goals and personal health goals. And she's just like, I feel out of alignment. And I totally understand that. I 100% get that whenever we are not calibrating towards our North Star and trying for our North Star, we can feel this imposter syndrome, right? Of not practicing what we preach, of not doing the things we know we need to do, of not going for the walk, of all these things, right? But I was sharing with her in the beginning how entrepreneurship and how starting my business was the very first time that I learned how to keep long-term promises to myself, where no one else was holding me accountable. There wasn't a professor grading my homework. There wasn't a coach, timing me with a stopwatch in a pool, but there was only me and my dream and my vision. And I mean, of course I had a coach at the time, but like all of that work was completely my own, and how my business laid the framework for me to begin to practice what I preached, to have a higher standard for myself, and just like what a what a beautiful testament to the process that was for me of like, I definitely didn't have it all figured out. I didn't have all the answers. I still don't, but I'm always in the pursuit of my true north, right? I'm always in the pursuit of doing the best I can, of being in the highest integrity I can be in. And this does not mean that I'm perfect. This doesn't mean that I knock it out of the park every day, but this means I get closer more often than I would if I didn't step into this role, if I wasn't a coach. So if you're also kind of like wrestling with like, can I do this? Can I really help people when I can't help myself? What do you need? What do you need to begin to do that? Do you need to hire a personal coach for your own work? Do you need to jump into a business container, right? Maybe a 2-for-1 situation. There's a lot of ways to get started, but that is, in my opinion, not a good enough reason not to begin. Right? That is a solvable thing that has an answer to it. We don't have to remain victim to it. You can absolutely change the outcome and rewrite that story. All right, team. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. If you are like, okay, great, I understand. I kind of have a little bit of this shiny object syndrome. My clients have this shiny object syndrome. What do I do about it? It's actually pretty simple. It's not very complicated. I think it's the execution that tends to be more hairy. But to get you started, one, set clear goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, and whenever a new thing that comes into your or like into your orbit that's exciting, that has your attention, look at your goals and say, does this serve my long-term goal? Is this in alignment with my long-term goal? Yes or no? And if it's not right now, that doesn't mean you have to chuck it out of the window forever. Maybe just set it down and revisit in 3 months or 6 months and see if it's better timing, if it's more in alignment, etc. You have to prioritize. So you have to, again, prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your goals of, does this shiny new object fuel me for where I want to be in 5 years? I have a client right now who got a really epic or perceived epic job opportunity over the weekend. This client has also made a lot of money in her first year of practice, but it is a role that she has wanted for a long time, and she feels called to this role. And I told her, she ended up coming to the decision on her own, which I'm really proud of. I checked in with her first. I was like, do you want my 2 cents before you make a decision here? Or do you want to make this decision on your own and we can talk about it after? I want to be sure not to interfere with your process. But she asked for my opinion and then made the decision and then listened to my voice memo later. And I think that when we're on a hero's journey, right? When we're on the coach's journey, when we're on this path to a more intentional life, shiny objects are going to come up a lot, and they're going to be invitations for you to double down. To double down on your why, to double down on your purpose, to double down on your intention, to double down on your values. And this has happened to me repetitively over and over and over again, to where, like, when I first started my practice, I quit my job because I could not keep working nights, being pregnant, and start my business. I had to choose, and obviously I'm going to choose to be pregnant, and I chose my business, which was a really big deal for me at the time. And I got a call a week later offering me day shift with like time and a half pay. They were in crisis. They needed me to come back. They didn't know what they were going to do. And I had just met Laura, probably, a couple months before this, and we were talking, and she had the kindness to just say, they will always need you. If you need money in 10 weeks, they will hire you back. They will always need you. You do not have to go back right now. Now is your chance to double down. And I didn't go back, didn't do the thing. My client also came to the conclusion of like that this didn't serve her long-term goals, and it was a fleeting excitement for her to say yes. So again, those moments can be challenging, but like prioritizing the end goal, keeping the end in mind of, does this decision support the long term? Another thing here we can do is to implement new things gradually. So kind of like proving my point to before of, I've taken a lot of certifications over the past 5 years. I've done a lot of trainings. I've done a lot of weekend trainings and 6-month trainings and coaching containers and one-on-ones and all the stuff, but like recognizing that I can't do it all at the same time and being able to titrate it to, yeah, I have more bandwidth right now. I want to learn some more, or no, I don't. I'm going to focus just like on what's working, having that discernment of, is this the right tool for right now? And if it's not, can I reevaluate in 3 to 6 months? And then finally here, team, seek feedback. If you are in our mentorship or any of our group spaces, ask your coach, not necessarily to give you the answer, but like to have a space to debrief it, to talk it out, to weigh the pros and cons, to do this assessment. Often we get stuck in like our own mental loop, and it can be hard to see the bigger picture. So having somebody that can hold the vision for you while you untangle all the thoughts and feelings can be super helpful. And also too, I think that like reviewing with your clients of like, do you like this new technique? Have you sensed a different flavor shift in my coaching? Like, what do you think can be helpful as well if you've been working with people long term? I wanna kind of leave it here at a moment of reflection, right? Of do you have shiny object syndrome? Do you notice that you are easily distracted, or that you go down a lot of rabbit holes, or that your attention is being pulled in 400 different directions? How can you kind of make a game out of it? Make it funny, make it silly of like, "Ugh, there it is again," instead of like covering yourself in judgment and shame and the shoulds and the guilt. But like, "Oh, it got me again." This still gets me and Laura from time to time. Like, we'll buy random things online of like perfect email templates or the secret social media strategy. Like, we still do this, right? We usually don't follow through on any too much of that. There have been a few that we do. I know Laura just got one that she's really excited about, but be all in on you, your vision, your dream, and allowing yourself to let it take time, to let it marinate, to let it come to fruition. I think that a lot of times shiny object syndrome comes in when we are looking to expedite or to have a catalyst, and we're looking for the secret sauce that doesn't exist. The secret sauce is have more love and patience for yourself and more grace and more time. Simply more time, my friends. So let me know what you think. Come in the Facebook group, debrief with me. Do you have shiny object syndrome? I would love to know. I would love to know. And I think that as you go on, you will be able to tune out the noise better and better and better to where when the right thing lands in your lap at the right time, you're like, oh, yeah, this feels good. This feels right. Versus, does this magically have the answer for me? Does this hold the secret thing that it has for me? The secret answer. It feels different between those two. All right, my friends, lots of love. We'll see you next time. Same time, same place. Have a good week. Bye bye.